Good evening and welcome to This Week in Review. Tonight's stories include the union protest continues, public meeting held to discuss closing of the meal plant, and the council report. These stories plus community events, the BBS Playbill, Off the Rack, and more coming up after this.
I am Ashtar, a robot from Planet Danger. I can put my arm back on. You can't. So play safe.
On Monday of this week, the protest concerning the fish plant continued. This story continued from last week. Word came to the town last week that equipment was slated to be removed from the plant. The union sprang into action and formed a protest. The next thing we knew, the meal plant was shut down and the employees were sent home. As far as the community was concerned, that was the end of that. On Sunday, October 14th, members of the union were informed that trucks were on their way to Burgeo with fish offal to be processed in the meal plant. The union blocked the trucks from entering the plant, and after a short period they went back over the Burgeo Road again without dropping off their cargo. Spokesperson for the union, Stan Strickland, felt it was time for a public meeting, considering that this was a community problem, not just a union problem. Members of the union, the town council, and the community were very frustrated, with one person telling them this and someone else telling them something completely different. It was a bad case of he said, she said. It was decided that the road to the plant would remain blocked until after the public meeting on Monday, October the 15th. On Monday, October the 15th, a public meeting was called concerning the fish plant. The meeting was called to order at 8 p.m. Approximately 120 people attended. Gerald McDonald introduced the gentlemen sitting at the table. Cyril Warren, Mayor Al Saran, Deputy Mayor Scott Linehan, Greg Eater of the BDDB, John Krant, Chair of the BDDB. Mayor Ann was the first speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, this evening, I'm not sure if I'm wearing the mayor's hat or what hat I'm wearing, but I get involved in the plant. I won't go into the history of what happened during the previous week. I think Deputy Mayor Linehan brought everybody up to speed on that in his television broadcast. However, I got back in town on Thursday, and when I got back, I immediately went up to the road there leading to the plant, and Cyril sort of filled me in. And then it looked as if, you know, it's coming to the time when probably the time to make a decision as to whether the people is going to have some say in what's going to happen over at the plant. If the people is tired of the same routine, the same speed that it's been traveling at, and if we feel that we're getting anywhere. Anyway, when I went there that morning, I was told that the boys who had turned up that morning had turned away a truck or the contractor or someone anyway, told them they didn't want them to go in there, and they hadn't. The next thing that came out through the line, now who issued that I don't know, but I was informed of this by Cyril and other people that was on the line, that somewhere it had come from Falcon out, that, you know, if that's the way it is, they can't take their equipment out, then clean up what offal was there and close down the fish meal plant. Now that what I'm giving you there came from people who was on the line, so if that's a lie, then someone lied to me on that line. So, you know, that's where I got it from. Anyway, having that, you know, they did close her down, and I guess the workers there did what they had to do and shut the plant down. Last night I got another call saying that there was trucks coming in and that they were going to remove the equipment from the plant. I went there, Cyril was there, a couple more people. We decided that we'd take a chance on this morning. Well, this morning, I don't say there was trucks come down to take out equipment, but there was trucks brought down more fish offal to start the reduction of fish meal again at the fish meal plant. who, the people there was of the understanding that this facility was shut down. And the word has been thrown around back and forth, and this has been going on now for a couple of years. The right thing to do is shut down that fish meal plant. I'm sure we've all heard it. So I said, well, one thing for sure, that's not a decision that I was going to make, and neither would I think it would be a decision that the Burgeo Town Council would make. It's the people of Burgeo who would have to make a decision whether they're going to carry this through to shut down the fish meal plant or not. Today before noon, I had a call from Mr. Merv Bungie wanting to know what was going on. There was no such thing as shutting it down. It was business as usual in Burgeo and so on. Well, I can only answer him the same that I've told you. But I did tell Mr. Bungie that, you know, when you go around telling lies, that automatically distrust gets built up. And lies were told because the first thing came down was that there was 18 ammonia cylinders and 1 water chiller that was being taken out. But in actual fact, what was in process of being taken out of the plant was 2 compressors, 1 condenser, 2 evaporators, a chiller, and 2 ammonia pumps. Well, he didn't know where the orders came from to take that other equipment out. Well, you know, I don't know what kind of a company that is that operates, but the CEO or nobody down the line knows what's happening. I mean, I can't believe the contractor came in for to pick up a water chiller and said, well, being Bringer, we may as well take a couple compressors and evaporators and in there too. I just can't believe that. That's like calling somebody in your house to fix your washer, and he says, well, being I'm here, I'll take the fridge, the washer, and the stove too. I just don't see where that makes any sense. Anyway, that being what it may, needless to say, I told Mr. Bungie, you know that the people of Burgeo are not pleased. We've got every reason not to be pleased on the progress that's been made in our plant. It seems as if there's activity going on each and every side of us, but nothing is going on in Burgeo. This afternoon, I had several calls there were several calls before Mr. Barry made contact with me, and at that time he was sitting in a meeting with his brother and I guess Mr. Bungie, and there was also 3 representatives from Burgeo. So I won't fill in what happened there, other than Bill was quite upset. You know, the sort of thing was... But anyway, as far as he was concerned, he pulled the 8 jobs out. Burgeo don't want the 8 jobs. He pulled the 8 jobs out and dumped the awful sum somewhere else. Again, I told him, well, you know, that was his decision, and I did express to him that the people of Burgeo was frustrated at what's been going on here in this town, and there's been no movement or nothing of that nature. So we chatted probably for 15 to 20 minutes, and needless to say, you know, it didn't accomplish anything. Bill still gives the impression that he'd like to do something in Burgeo, perhaps he would, but it's not being done. And I made it quite clear to him when he asked me several times, was he going to close up that fish plant, that fish meal plant? And I said, I don't know. But I said, there is a general meeting in Burgeo tonight for the general public, and also a union meeting to follow. And I heard, and I'm not sure yet, I guess that will be decided among you tonight whether you want to vote or not, that the people of Burgeo will say whether they want the fish meal reduction plant to continue. If that's the only thing that's going to be operating in Burgeo, the fish meal plant, do you want that to continue? I think that will be the question that will be asked. I don't know. You know, it's not an easy thing. There's been a lot of work put in this by the town of Burgeo trying to acquire a resource to open the Burgeo plant. We haven't been successful. I don't know. I know I started off the first time I met. I asked why crab couldn't be trucked down into Burgeo, and we were too far away, they said. Well, of course, I didn't know much about crab at that time, but I do know now that they take crab off the wharf here in Burgeo, and that's been sitting there probably for a couple of days. That's just a little amount's being landed here in Burgeo. It's sometimes been on board of a boat for a couple of days. I've seen it sit on that wharf down there for a couple of days. Then they put it on a truck and they haul it to Carbonear. So, you know, I mean, crab must be pretty durable if it can withstand that, but it seems like it can take it on the route out, but it can't take it on the route in. You know, I don't know what the difference in the distance is from A to B and what it is from B to A. I always thought it was the same. But anyway, like I say, there are 8 jobs over there. The other thing I've always been a little bit reluctant about this deciding was, you know, there is electricity on the plant now. If we shut down the fish meal plant, does that mean the electricity comes off the plant? And then again, does it make any difference whether it comes off or not? These are the kind of things that you're going to have to think about before you cast a vote. And another thing is the perception. The perception outside of Virgil. What will it be? You know, as far as, will they perceive that we're just a bunch of radicals, or will they look up and say, I think these people did the right thing. It's time that they stood up. These are decisions that you're going to have to make. I can't make those decisions for you. But all I can say is that in the length of time that I've been working at the plant, I've tried to bring back to you, quite honestly, everything that transpires. The council has been as active as it can be in trying to start the plant off. It struck a note somewhere this morning, I can assure you, when those truckloads of fish didn't get into that plant. I really didn't think there would be as much back from it as there was. I kind of thought that would be it, you know. But apparently they weren't too pleased because they wanted to dump those loads of guts in our town. So, you know, Barry brought up about his equipment there to me this afternoon. He said, you think it's going to sit there about $5 million worth of equipment forever and a day and just gather dust, get it out and sell it? And I told the man quite clearly, yes, it definitely is your equipment. And we do know that you've got every right to take it out. And I also assured him that the people of Virgil is not naive enough that we don't know that we can't hurt Falcon Sea seafoods. We know we can. We know that Falcon Seafoods is going to be around in Newfoundland for years and years to come. That's not going to be our intent to hurt Falcon Seafoods. I think whatever you decide here this evening is going to be what's going to help Virgil, not what's going to hurt Falcon Seafoods. So that's all I've got to say for now. Unless there's some questions someone would like to ask me, and maybe after the other speakers, things will cross my mind to say, or if I got more to say, or if you want me to ask me different questions, I'll certainly be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Greg Eager, the local development officer, gave a report on his meeting with Bell Berry on Monday afternoon.
Earlier today, myself and the chairman of BDDB, John Grant, as well as the vice chair, Billy Dunford, were invited into a meeting with Mr. Berry and representatives of his company. Jim Berry was there, as well as Will Money, as well as Rich Carter. I will say, I guess from the outset, that the meeting we had today really didn't come as about the activities that happened this previous week. For the last 3 to 4 months, the BDDB has actually been trying to get a meeting with Mr. Berry in relationship to what direction he felt that he was going to take in relationship to this plant, and what he might plan to do, if anything. The meeting actually came as a result of a meeting we had with your local, or the local executive of the FFAW, in which Mr. Berry had a conversation with Reg Anstey, and during that meeting, he basically said to Mr. Anstey that if you give me $1, the community can have the plant back. So having said that, we really wanted to know how serious Mr. Berry was about that aspect, and see what the potential was of this community getting that asset back again, and seeing what we could do as a community as a whole to move forward and try and get something activated within that facility. So that was our main goal today, of course, just to see how serious he was in relationship to the plant, and to see if he had any intent whatsoever of moving anything forward. Obviously, we did have the opportunity to discuss activities that took place the last couple of days here at the plant facility, and I'll certainly get into that as we go along. He did basically say, and I'll try to keep this as simple as I can, there was a lot of things discussed over the hour and a half. We went back through probably some of the overall history of how he took over the plant, what it cost him to take it over, how the boats were removed and the quotas and the moratorium and all kinds of different situations. But we basically boiled down at the end of the day, and I asked him very point blank, direct question is, you know, how can the community access that facility to possibly move it forward if you have no intent of doing anything? And his response to me, and I don't mind saying it because I told him we were coming back to a public meeting to discuss this, that they invested $5 million based on a lot of people's feelings and thoughts and guarantees that there was going to be crab come to this facility and this community, and they never got it, and that if the community wanted that facility back again, then basically pay the $5 million that they invested. So anyhow, again, you know, I'm just reiterating the things that Mr. Berry did say. He also stated that he was at this point in time totally out of ideas. He stated that he is tried to explore various resources in conjunction with Town Council and the Fish Plant Committee over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. He even mentioned that he had developed a major proposal for redfish development here in this community, which he had sent to Ottawa, and to this date that he hadn't received any reply whatsoever from the people up there. In a nutshell, that was basically it. And of course, we also got into discussion about the meal plant, about the plant. We discussed that the community as a whole was not very happy with what was transpired in regards to the fish meal plant. There was concerns with the 8 jobs. He certainly left us with every impression that, well, I don't have to carry the offal down to Burjo. I have dumping permits and I can dump it. And of course, we're at no point, we never had the time to confirm whether or not he was permitted to do it. So we just basically took him at his word at that time and moved on from there. He did say, however, to us today that in terms of the plant, that he said if people are upset, and this came from both Merv and Jim as well, upset with what transpired with the equipment, then we leave the equipment there. Basically what they would like to do is start up the meal plant again and continue it on. Wherever we did discuss as well where the words came from in terms of we're going to shut the plant down anyway, forget it, we won't ship the offal down here. Apparently that was never discussed with Falcon. When they gave direction to clean up and shut down, it was meant for the weekend because after Thursday there was no more offal coming down. And again, I'm just looking and we're passing on the information that we received from Mr. Barrett. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's totally up to each individual in the room. And of course they basically left us today with the impression that they had every intent of trying to continue on with the meal plan. I don't know, Millie or John, if I really left anything out overall, but that was the crux of the meeting. And again, we can get in, like the mayor said, into the history of what transpired, how he got involved in Burjo and all that, but I think everybody around here pretty well knows the history, and I don't have to repeat any of that again. So really, that was really the crux of the situation today. Certainly he did reiterate that he felt that he put substantial dollars in here, and in the future he didn't feel that he was prepared to invest any more money in that plant for any resource, and if a resource was given to Burjo, then he felt it was obligated through government or some other ways and means to revamp the facility with somebody else's money to move it forward, because he felt that he was more than slighted in regards to the issues surrounding the crab. And he did also talk about the crab a fair amount. He felt that there wasn't substantially enough done in terms of trying to secure an allocation for Burjo. And we did give him in chronological order from the September before last, or negotiations leading up to the September before crab was here, how there was 2 busloads of people went in from here and Ramia in St. John's and got the crab. And then even when the crab was finished on December 22nd, in January, representatives of this community, as well as our MHAs, actually went to St. John's and had a major meeting. And I reminded them that there was a delegation that went to see Dollywall in Ottawa in January. Also in March of that year, we had a major forum here in Burjo where we brought in people from DFO, George Baker, the whole works, in regards to trying to get something. And from that point on, every so often there was various things initiated either through council, the fish plant committee, or through the BDDB to try and keep that in the forefront. And at the end of the day, it was through no fault of the community leaders and that there wasn't a quota secured for Burjo. So I certainly reminded Mr. Berry of that fact as we went down the road. So basically, at the end of the day, he felt that him and his partners had invested money, and that at this point in time, he wasn't prepared to put anything on the table. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything.
Deputy Mayor Linehan also spoke, as did John Krant.
Thank you. I guess I didn't know I had to speak to you. I guess I apologize for getting here a little late, but by law I was supposed to be at another meeting tonight, so if Councilman Caldwell comes to take me out of cuffs, you'll know why I cut short. You haven't got any worries with that. I guess I don't need to rehash everything Mayor Hand said, and certainly all probably seen my, my address on Thursday, and again, relayed last night. But I think what's important, and I'm kind of new, and I'm trying to be brought up to speed as quick as possible. I'll tell you, it's really baptism by fire, because I've learned a lot in the last week, let me tell you. The first thing being that what people tell you on the phone is not what the paper's written on. I was absolutely misrepresented, and I believe the Minister of Justice was misrepresented in conversations with his office and with Falcon Seafoods, and I found that disappointing. However, I think it's important that Falcon Seafoods understands that we of Virgil did not close the fish meal plant. They elected not to send trucks down, and I'm afraid that they want to divide and conquer. They want to put people who work at the fish meal plant against the people who aren't working, and it's not the case. From what I understand, he refused to send trucks down and did not even try to bring offal into the plant. So I think we have to be very aware of that that was their doing. They did that of their own volition, and they did not even try to come to Virgil. So I think we should keep that in mind. I will be the last person who would want to see 8 jobs removed from Virgil. That is the decision that will be left, as Mr. Hanson, to the people of Virgil. And I'll certainly respect, on behalf of council, I'll respect everything you have to say with that. And Guy, your point is well taken, and I hear a lot of that around town. As well, I find it kind of interesting that Mr. Bungie called me today, and I informed him that Mayor Hand was in town, and he wanted to speak with him as well. And I find it very peculiar over the fact that if he has so many dumping sites in Virgil, or sorry, around the province, and why does he want to come to Virgil so bad? That automatically strikes a chord with me and makes me ask, why do you want to come so bad to Virgil if you have so many other options open to you? Something, pardon the pun, didn't smell right there. And the other thing that I thought was peculiar is that they were in such a hurry to disassemble our plant, and in speaking with Mr. Bungie today, he didn't care less if the material stayed or not. Now, he was in such a mad tear on Thursday, he wanted to do it in 24 hours. Now, on conversation with him today, he didn't care less if it stayed. To me, that also seems very, very strange. In conversations with him today, he talked about putting people out of work, and his words were that there was no such case. We want to continue work in Virgil and business as usual. These were his words. And again, I find that very peculiar given what he's told me. The last thing I guess I would like to say is just to further a point that Mr. Hannon said with regard to Virgil being a group of radicals. If maintaining what we have and getting people back to work in Virgil means that we're radicals, then let us be the most radical people alive.
I guess basically, Joe, or where the thing is, I mean, I'm not going to try to change anybody. I'm not going to try to persuade people to vote either which way or whatever. As long as people is fully up to speed on exactly what they're voting for. I mean, Joe, basically is what I'm looking for. And I mean, to put everything in perspective, right now, I agree with Mr. Law mentioned is the sea urchin license. I mean, no doubt, if everything falls through with Bell Barry, may be grounds for get our own sea urchin license type of thing, right? But as it sits right now, we're using Bell Barry's license to harvest sea urchins. And again, just not to try to sway anybody away, but as long as everybody's clear that once the decision is made based on them grounds. You know, if I mean, maybe it don't even affect it at all. I don't know. Maybe somebody shine some more light onto it. But I mean, he voluntarily let us use the sea urchin part of his license.
The main focus of this meeting was to have the community vote to shut down the meal plant, yes or no. As you can imagine, this caused quite a stir. It seemed the majority was in favor of shutting down the meal plant. But after some considerable discussion on the matter, a motion was made to use the meal plant as leverage to get a meeting with Mr. Barry and to keep the plant closed until Mr. Barry agreed to a meeting. The motion was voted on and carried. A committee was formed to talk to Mr. Barry about what his plans were for Virgil, or if he had any at all. This committee will be made up of 2 councillors, 2 union members, and 2 BDD members. On Tuesday evening, Mr. Linehan, Deputy Mayor, add this message for the community.
Good evening. I speak to you this evening again as the Deputy Mayor of Burgeo and Town Council representative. I want to give you an update on recent developments in the last 24 hours from a follow-up from our public meeting last night at the community center. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who got out last night to show their concern and express their opinions at the public meeting last night. It was very good to see a free flow of ideas in a very civil and democratic forum. So I thank everyone who showed up last night and followed a very democratic process, and I think great things came out of that meeting, and I want to touch base with all the members of Burgeo today regarding recent events. Again, this is just an update session. I was approached by Mr. Gerald McDonald and Mr. Cyril Warren to address the people of Burgeo. From a town council perspective, I'm not advocating one position or the other. This is merely an information update for all our residents of our community. Today at about 1:30, I received a letter from one Mr. Bill Barry concerning recent developments at our fish plant. Mr. Barry outlined various things in his correspondence that he would like addressed. This was a very favorable letter, and speaking for council, I'm quite pleased that he did respond to our previous correspondence of last week. I would just like to take a minute and go through this letter with you, the details of which he's outlined that he sent to Mr. Alistair Hand, Mayor of Burgeo. In it, Mr. Barry has said that I confirm to you that no equipment will be moved from the plant without first discussing it with your community and your union leadership. This is very important because the position is now of Mr. Barry that this machinery, even though it's costing the Barry Group money by sitting here in our plant, he is now under the position whereby he will keep it in Burgeo until he first meets with people of our community before any further action is taken. So we are certainly glad that he has respected our correspondence and has got back to us on that regard. Mr. Barry goes on to outline the amount of money he has placed into our plant and has not given up on the idea of doing further development in our area. As well, Mr. Barry has a proposed plan for Burgeo, and he has called for members of the community to sit with him in his office in Corner Brook at 11 a.m. on Monday, October 22nd, 2001. He would like to see the fish meal plant reopened in our community, and he would further like to discuss plans of further development of proposed plans he has for our plant in Burgeo. I think this is very promising for the simple fact that from our meeting last night, it was agreed that a committee will be struck of community members who would sit with Mr. Barry with an open mind and with good faith and listen to what he has to say and put forth our arguments. This is very important, as last night we agreed as a community that the fish meal plant will be closed for a 2-week interim, and in that 2 weeks we would try to slate a meeting with Mr. Barry. It was critical that we meet with Mr. Barry to tell him where we come from as a community and to let him know that this is foremost on our minds and that is tantamount importance of the people of Burgeo that the fish plant remain on the table. Mr. Barry has agreed to meet with members of the community on October 22nd. So we'll be in the process as a town to coordinate an effort of local people to go meet with Mr. Barry and discuss what proposed plans he has for our plant in Burgeo. From what I understand from Mr. Barry's correspondence, that he hopes to develop full-time positions in Burgeo 12 months out of the year. However, it is critical that both his group, the province, the union, and the council are all operating on the same page. I think this is a very good step in the right direction. So We will certainly take this under advisement, and I'm glad that Mr. Barry is now of this position. I would also like to take this opportunity, in light of this correspondence. Mr. Barry has said that he is making his best effort and that the direction is now with us. Given that, and having spoken with Mr. Gerald McDonald and Mr. Cyril Warren, and as member of the general public know that the fish meal plant was to be closed for 2 weeks, to send a message to Falcon Seafoods and Mr. Barry that we are dead serious about economic development and future growth of our town. In a measure of good faith bargaining, the local union representatives and workers have since rescinded their position. They have taken up the blockade of our fish plant wharf, and have agreed to let fish meal be processed at our plant, and that offal can be brought down to our community and fish meal shipped out. This shows good faith bargaining on the members of our union and our town. This is a step in the right direction, as I see it. Again, no decision has been made from the town council perspective. This is merely an information update. However, a council meeting is slated to be held tomorrow for its regular town meeting at 6:30. I would also like to reassure every member of our community that we will approach this issue with very, very carefully. We are certainly aware of all the issues that were raised at our public meeting last night, especially as they pertain to core licenses and acquiring our fish plant. So, with respect to 2-year dormancy on a license and renewal of licenses, I can assure you that that has not been forgotten and will certainly be brought forth when the committee is struck. All your concerns were heard last night. They were noted, and they will certainly be brought to the table. Again, this is merely a committee that will be set up to meet with Mr. Barry to find out what exactly his intentions are for our fish plant here in Burgeo. I would like also to say that I spoke with Mr. Merv Bungie of Falcon Seafoods at 3:20 this afternoon, and I told him of our union's good faith bargaining gesture to remove barricades and to let fish meal be processed at our plant. It's very important to show that we are going at this with an open mind, and we expect the same level of courtesy and understanding from their group. Mr. Bungie has assured me that any level of comfort the people of Burgeo need will be okay. For example, if that involves securing the equipment that was slated to move, that will be okay. If that involves inspecting trucks that must leave our area, that too is also okay. Whatever level of comfort meets with the union is okay with Falcon Seafoods, and I think that's very important to know. Whatever is needed can be done that is in the best interest of our community. This is what Falcon Seafoods is offering to us as a good faith bargaining gesture. Having spoken with the union and Mr. Cyril Warren, he has told his workers and he has advised his workers that they can now, and they have agreed to move the blockade, and a free flow of trucks will go back and forth, and whatever the union or workers for the plant agree that is comfortable for them, that will be okay. So trucks will start rolling tomorrow with regard to fish meal. At 4:15, I spoke with Mr. Calvin Parsons' office, and they too are in receipt of a letter from Mr. Bill Barry, and they too are actively pursuing this matter and are certainly on top of it. And they'll be working in partnership with the town council on this issue. So that's the current state of information as we have received them here from the council office. I would like to say to you, the people of Burgeo, that you are known by the strength of your beliefs and the conviction in your resolve. And I certainly hope that you stand by your conviction and you stand by your integrity, because at the end of the day, that's all we really have. I can assure you, from the town council perspective, that we will not go quietly in the night and we will not lie down in the cover of darkness. Your town council has been and will continue to be your voice in the future of Burgeo. And we will do our best to ensure that that voice is heard. So I want to thank you for your time this evening, and we'll be talking soon.
Stay tuned for more of This Week in Review coming up after this.
Vimy Ridge, Hong Kong, Dieppe, Caen, Cap Young. I'm Cliff Chatterton of the War Ants. Never Again, a series of 30 videos about the Canadian volunteers who fought these wars. Learn about the Newfoundlanders in Gallipoli, about our campaign of mountain warfare in Italy, why a Canadian battalion in Korea earned a U.S. presidential citation. The War Ants, preserving our military heritage.
Now over to Mayor Ann with the council report.
Good evening. Burgeo Town Council report for Wednesday, October the 17th, 2001. Water treatment plant. Town manager advised council that the design from Atlantic Engineering has been completed. That was submitted to the Department of Municipal Affairs on October the 12th. Municipal Affairs now will go through the design to see if there is any errors or inaccuracies, and I imagine the Department of the Environment's got to look at it as well. So we're talking, they say 2 weeks, I'll say 1 month, and then it will go to, if everything is okay, it will go to tender. So say give it a couple of weeks advertising, then a couple of more weeks, you're starting pretty close to the end of the year 2001 before there be any contracts let. So that's where it sits right now. I'm not optimistic you're going to see anything happen until spring, and but in the meantime, that's no big deal. At least we've got the approval, and the job is moving along. Clams, Town Manager Doug and Development Officer Greg Illier, they attended a meeting in Stephenville, one more meeting with Mr. Artle and Ms. Story, and they're of the same opinion that this is going nowhere, and it was a decision of council that council's position is that they're not going to waste any more time in meetings or anything else with this group, and council does not support the proposals being put forward by Mr. Hartle and Ms. Story. This whole fiasco which has went on there, I'd just like to remind the people, it's got the government shed tied up. Practically, what we have gained from this clam thing is two things. One, the town has lost a shed, which at the present time is going before court now with regard to injunctions and so on. The government is trying to get them out of the shed. They're trying to stay in the shed, even knowing that Burgeo has a use for that shed. It's been alluded to by the BDDB that they could have had 30 people working here this year on sea urchins if that shed had been back into control of this town. So that's one thing that was taken as a result of this venture by Ardle and Story. The other thing is now you've got those clam bids which they've got total control of. So if someone came in tomorrow and really had the capital, the investment, and wanted to do something, this is tied up, and God only knows when it will return back to the people. Regarding leaks, we're experiencing a few leaks in our lines around town and so on. It was approved that council would seek out a much better leak detection piece of equipment. We're looking at probably $5,000 or $6,000, but before we do make that investment, we're looking at leak detection equipment, which other towns are using. Apparently Stephenville has a very good system, and but approval was given to the town manager that once we have come up with what is considered to be the best system, then the town of Burgeo will be acquiring a new leak detection system. The old detector, as you've seen Mr. Meade use from time to time with stuck in his ears and so on, it has served well. It has served the town well, but with the new technology, I think we've advanced beyond that. The Economic Development Officer gave a report to Council. Regarding the museum, we had a request from the museum that it's time to do some repairs, and Council agrees that it is with regard to windows and sidings and so on. However, we're going through a system whereby the town would probably put in $2,500 and see if we could get $10,000 back from government. So it's sort of on a system like we did with the town hall. You put in $2,500, you get $10,000, and that's a good investment in anybody's books. And one of the things we are considering and going to look at is to try get some murals put on the exterior. Other towns are using it. As you travel around, you see they got their walls painted and the rocks painted and so on. So we're investigating that to see if we can't get some sea scenes put on the exterior of the museum, which will depict our history and so on. Regarding the kiosk and the Burgeo Road signage, the Economic Development Officer submitted that the thing for the signage on the highway has been completed. He submitted it to the Town Council, and he wants us to go over it, and if there's nothing to be changed, then it will be submitted to see if we can't get some good signage on the Trans-Canada to try divert people down to Burgeo. And along with that, Gord Ingram, Greg Illier, Jim Pink, and myself will form the committee with regard to seeing what improvements and which way we should be going as far as improving that kiosk up there on the far end of the Burgeo Road. Cell phones, we were advised that, and this didn't come as any surprise, that yes, it looks pretty certain that we will be getting some cell phone coverage. However, that coverage will be mainly on the coast. You may get 10 or 15 miles inland, but by and large, the cell coverage will be along the coast. There is plans and hopes to get it extended to cover the full Burgeo Road. However, this is quite a chunk of money, and no doubt in Newtown Mobility will be looking at what the return is from the coast and weighing the options and see if it's worth the investment to put in the necessary towers to give full coverage along the Burgeo Road. The fish plant, that came in for some discussion. I'm sure everyone is aware of what has happened within the last week to 10 days regarding the plant and the shutting down of the plant and so on. Anyway, as a result of all of this, there's been a request from Mr. Barry that the town would set up a committee, representatives of Union, the BDDB, and the Burgeo Town Council, and meet with him on Monday. Councillor Reid and Councillor McDonald will represent the Burgeo Town Council on this committee, and they will be going to Corner Brook on Monday. Having announced, and this is all that has happened so far, having announced that, I have got to elaborate a little bit on, I know some of you will wonder why the mayor and myself is not on that committee, and I've got to admit that I voluntarily stepped aside. I have got too much mistrust for Mr. Barry, Mr. Anstey, and Mr. McCurdy. Now, while McCurdy and Anstey have not, to my knowledge, been brought on the scene yet with regards to this new round of talks on the Burgeo plant, I got no doubt eventually they will be brought in. And for me to go there with the mistrust that I carry, I felt that I would have been a liability rather than an asset. So therefore, I really do think in the best interests of the town and the fish plant, it was best for me to step aside, not take a lead role, and that is what I have done. However, having said that, I have full confidence in the two councillors who will be representing the town, and I've pledged to them that I will support their decisions. If they make a decision, I certainly will support them in it. Plus, I will do anything as with regard to bringing about anything that I can be helpful, or persuasion, or contacts that I may have that could help this move forward. However, I repeat again that no, I could not go and sit on another committee. Given the frame of mind that I have towards these three that I just mentioned, and so therefore this will be handled by Councillor Reid and Councillor MacDonald. Not this meeting, but the meeting before, we had a request from the Ground Search and Rescue to, they're getting an emergency response vehicle, and they requested the Burgeo Town Council to ask if we would cover the cost of the registration and insurance on the vehicle. This comes to approximately $280. That's if it's brought in and registered under the town plan of insurance. We didn't jump in right away. First, we had the town manager check with some other towns and check with municipal affairs to see if it was legal for us to get in that area. Anyway, it came back. There are several towns which do that for the Ground Search and Rescue, plus municipal affairs advised us that we didn't have to do this, but there was nothing to keep the town from not taking part in the Ground Search and Rescue and supporting it. We also look at it as it could be a part of our emergency measures plan if something should happen whereby you know, the emergency measures had to come into effect. The Ground Search and Rescue would complement the FAR-all and whatever was necessary, whatever that emergency should be. So given that, the town did approve a financial expenditure to have the Ground Search and Rescue emergency response vehicle come under the town's insurance policy. We had some complaints, and some are, and they are quite legitimate. One was one about the stacking of wood, packing wood not on the shoulder of the road, but practically touching the streets. And you know, that's just not good enough. It's anyone's business to burn wood, but when you pack it so tightly to the side of the road that it's interfering with other people and with town activities, well then, you know, that becomes the business of the general public, and in fact comes back to the town. The town manager will be trying to look into this, and there may be possible that the town is going to have to adopt a bylaw, as other towns have done, with regard to the stacking and cutting and packing and sawing and splitting of wood within the municipality. Another complaint we had was regarding people walking their dogs and not being very responsible with regard to the doggy-do. Now, Council doesn't think that it's necessary to pass a bylaw in this regard, but I think as good citizens that you know, if you're walking your dog and the time comes for them to do this, then I don't think it's much effort to just lead them off the sidewalk. Don't just stand up by the dog and you know, just let them make a big mess right on the middle of the sidewalk and walk away from it yourself. There's nothing the dog can do about it, but certainly owning the dog, you are responsible for what the dog does. So, you know, if you want to be a good citizen and take a bit of pride in your town, I think you should start looking at that. There's a development going ahead in Heron's Arm fairly soon, I think. But in any event, there was a request there that when the town does their project with regard to the building which the town will be putting there, which will be associated with the water treatment plant, there was a request that should there be excess fill and materials of that type, could we try upgrade the parking area in the Heron's Arm area. And Council saw no reason why we couldn't.
you know, the closer the contractor will be able to pull the material away and dispose of it, I'm sure the better it'll be for the contractor. So the town manager have been asked to speak to the contractors when they work and sort of tell them, designate to them where to dump any excess material that should come about as a result of the project, which will be carried out when the water treatment contract is let. Healthcare. Councillor David McDonald did speak to someone at the Calder Health Care Centre with regard to the chronic acute care situation. He was quite pleased with the answers that he got, and no doubt we will bring this up again when Councillor Marsden attends a meeting. Councillor Marsden was out of town again this meeting, so therefore we haven't been able to get us all together. However, right now I seem to be getting the impression that it's not as big a problem as we thought it was, and if anything, maybe it could be a godsend in disguise, particularly with regard to the appears to be coming up the downloading, which is probably going to happen in the healthcare system. Now, I attended the forum at Corner Brook on healthcare this week, and make no mistake about it, I think that there's going to be vibrations come somewhere within the healthcare system. The Minister Bettany pointed out that 44 cents out of every tax dollar is being spent in healthcare, and they're showing a deficit. So the system has got to be changed in some way. The province just can't afford to carry the system anymore. And there's some options which are not open, how we're going to finance it, and she's ruled out categorically that an increase in taxes is not an option. Borrowing is an option, but not a good one. Maybe they can get more money from the federal government, but that doesn't look very good either. So it appears as if the health care is in quite a problem with regard to money, and they've got to find ways to try maintain the system with the amount of money that's there. So just which corners that's going to take, I'm sure I don't know. They had a group of people there. There was workshops and brainstorming and one thing and the other. So I guess Minister Bettany have got it on her plate now, and just what she's going to do with it. I'm sure I don't know. I think she made it quite clear that taking something from the other departments, such as highways or municipal affairs or any of those departments, is probably not an option that's open either, because these departments got very small budgets to start with, and they're being stretched and just barely making it. So she's got quite a thing on her plate, and so therefore you can expect anything, in my opinion, with regard to health care. And that was it for council, except for invoices in the amount of $20,553.69 was approved for payment. Good evening.
On Thursday of this week, we were invited to a Sea Cadet meeting for a presentation.
To do here, it's been a long time coming, 2 years just about. But as you know, Mr. Caldwell, the XO, is RCP officer here. He's been trying to get into the CIC for the past 2 years. And the paperwork's finally come through, and right now I'm going to swear him in. So, sir, if you could stand out right here for me, please. Place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. I, Donald Lawrence Caldwell, do solemnly swear that I will bear true allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs, and all her successors. So help me God. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You're now a member of the Canadian Armed Forces Cadet Instructor Cadre. Carry on. Sir. This past year, we had Mr. Guy Dan. He was the chairperson for the Boy-Girl Committee for the Lions Club, and I asked him to be here tonight because he was a big part of the goings-on with the Corps last year. Without a sponsor, without a local sponsor, a Sea Cadet Corps cannot exist, okay? It is a partnership between the Department of National Defence and the Navy League of Canada. Our sponsor, Burgeo Lions, is basically a representative of the Navy League of Canada at the local level. They are a liaison between our Sea Cadet Corps and the Navy League of Canada, in particular the Newfoundland and Labrador Division. When the sponsor takes on the responsibility of sponsoring the Sea Cadet Corps, there's a charter that goes with it, and there's a list of duties and responsibilities that they have. Basically, they look after the well-being of our Corps. They want to make sure that we have a place to parade, make sure that all the officers are getting along. They are responsible for recruitment of officers at the local level. We can't recruit anybody or enroll anybody unless their signature is on the paper. So they play a very important role in the whole system. Without them, basically, we cannot exist. Last year, I mean, they were a tremendous help to us, and I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Guy Hand for that. He was here consistently all the time. He gave a lot of his time and effort into our movement last year. I wanted him to be here tonight. Last week, and as I let you know, myself and the XO, Mr. Caldwell, we traveled to St. John's. I represented the Sea Cadet Corps as the commanding officer, and Mr. Caldwell is also a member of the Lions, so he represented the club at the Navy League of Canada Newfoundland and Labrador Division annual general meeting that was held out in St. John's. And during this time, there are several awards that are given out. And earlier this year, I felt that the Lions were basically what a sponsor should be, and we had a tremendous relationship. So an application was submitted, and I'd like to call the president of the Burgeo Lions come forward. It gives me great pleasure to award to the Burgeo Lions Club on behalf of our Sea Cadet Corps and the Newfoundland and Labrador Division of the Navy League of Canada, Jean Elliott Memorial Award for the top sponsor in Newfoundland and Labrador. Congratulations.
On behalf of Burgeo Lions Club, I'd like to accept this award from RCSCC Bob Bartlett. And I'd like to give special thanks to Guy Ann, who without his support during the past year, this award would not have been possible. Once again, thanks.
Stay with us for Off the Rack, the community events, and the BBS Playbill, all after this.
As members of CHAMP, we've had a close bond with the war amputees ever since we were kids.
We've learned about Canada's military heritage
from those who are actually there.
Now we can pass on their message through presentations, videos, and our own website.
Operation Legacy isn't just about remembering.
It's commemoration with a message.
That message? Never again.
It was our war. It is their legacy.
Off the Rack. This week, as we scanned our tape rack, we came across the official opening of the Calder Healthcare Center gift shop. Let's look back to October 1999.
Well, ladies, and I don't have to say gentlemen today, because I don't see
Good
oh, there's one young fellow there, I think that's a gentleman. But anyway, this is an occasion I think that most mayors enjoy attending. It's when you're opening something. It's so much better to see something opening within your town rather than something closing. So, on behalf of the Burgeo Town Council, I would like to thank the staff of the Calder Healthcare Center and the volunteers who made this gift shop possible. And I wish you every success down the road, and I'm sure it'll be one more service to the residents and to the visitors to the hospital that will enhance and keep up the good work which the Calder Healthcare Center is providing for the town of Burgeo. So that's all I've got to say, and now I would cut the ribbon and declare your gift shop.
The other side.
Yay! Guys, go in and your beautiful gift shop.
BBS Playbill. Try your luck on Wednesday by playing Lions TV Bingo. Join Pansy and the gang for 2 stories of craft and lots of fun on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on Pansy's Garden. And I'll be here again next week with This Week in Review. For This Week in Review, I'm Marie Rose. Good night and God bless.